Now on NLL Lacrosse Talk, as usual, our co-host and partner in interviews here, Gary Group, and our very special guest, Derek Keenan, GM and head coach of the Saskatchewan Rush of the National Lacrosse League. Derek, a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. We always enjoy talking lacrosse, and it is a lot of fun talking to people who are involved with the NLL, especially coaches. We get to get more of an insight into the game, but I'm just going to ask you first. We ask everybody, what led you to the game of lacrosse?
I started playing at a very young age. I had a close cousin of mine, Freddie Greenwood, who he played for the dynasty Oshawa Greengales in the 60s on all those Minnow Cup teams under Jim Bishop. And he gave me a stick at a very young age. I spent a lot of time at his family home when I was very young, and started playing organized lacrosse at around 5. But I had a bit of a head start because he used to practice with me all the time over at the schoolyard. So that's kind of what got me into it in the beginning.
What kept you in it?
I loved it. I liked it right from the beginning. I played hockey too. I played pretty high-level hockey, and I played basketball and football in high school. But I think lacrosse was always sort of my passion, and I was probably better at it than the other sports too. So, I had a glimmer of a hope in hockey, but that didn't last long. And then really the passion for lacrosse took over.
Why Jammer?
It's too long of a story to get into.
Okay, well, that's all right. You don't have, it's not bad. 3 out of 4 ain't bad. Okay, I got another question then. Why coaching?
I honestly didn't think I would be a coach type until I was given an opportunity, and I had no experience with the very first the beginning of the Toronto Beaches Junior A franchise. Back in the early 90s, I was still playing. For whatever reason, the GM there, Wayne Copeland, called me up out of the blue and asked me if I'd be interested in coaching. At the time, I'd played for a number of years with Brooklyn in the major series, and we had some success there. And I think I was playing in Buffalo at the time with the old MILL, and I said, "Sure, I'll give it a go. I think I have some knowledge, and I've certainly played for a lot of good coaches in Bishop and Peter Vipon, and later on Les Bartley." So I said, "Yeah," and I really enjoyed it, and from there it was a real kind of learning process in terms of how to handle people and that. But that was kind of how I started, and then from there, when my son was born, I started coaching minor lacrosse. So I kind of went back at a lower level, including house league. I coached for a number of years, and just kind of led to this career, I guess.
Well, we might have run into each other because I was the play-by-play guy at Rogers for the Toronto Beaches lacrosse team.
Oh, wow.
Before you were playing there. Have I given up my age? Oh my God. We used to cover them at Birchmount Stadium.
So when they were a junior B team.
Yes, and the arena, I always joke about that it rained one day and the next day it'd be raining on the floor and the guys were running around with buckets.
Yeah. Well, the old Ted Reed was a good spot to play. It was a tiny little thing, but they're still there, and it was a fun place to be. And it was a good way to start my career. I think it was a brand new franchise too, so we started from the ground up, and I think we had a little bit of success there early on. And I only did it for 2 years, but that's kind of how I got my feet wet coaching. Yeah,
it's one of it underrated hotbed of lacrosse, that community. Not like the ones that we know in Peterborough and go to BC and go to other places. It was a little more subtle in Toronto, but a very, very dedicated group of players, and the organization was very dedicated. In fact, we had a certain player who bragged about the fact that he tried to hit me while I was. And Gary's laughing. Yeah, and then an NLL player who got a kick out of seeing if he could hit me with the ball.
Oh boy, that's not very nice.
It's typical.
It's funny 'cause he apologized on this show of all things. It's Paul St. John of all people.
Oh, that's funny.
It is funny. So yeah, I have some roots in the game too. I love the game as well. I've been for a while. Gary, okay, you can put him on the grill now.
All right, I wanna go back a little bit because I have an association with the Green Gaels as well. Every year I'm out to Prague with them, so I want to talk a bit about your era there with them. You spent 7 years there. I believe it was 3 Minto Cups. Did you have a favorite combination of team there? Because there were a lot of great players that came through that team.
Um, I mean, I played with a lot of when I was really young. I played as a first year midget, so
Right.
I mean, I played with Stan Cochran, and he was unbelievable, and is a good friend of mine to this day. He was just so talented, and then later on, Kelly Mitchell was a special talent, became my best friend, and unfortunately we lost him a couple years ago. But I just played with a lot of really good guys like J.D. Gibbs and Mike McKee, who was a Scarborough Beaches guy. Local guys like Fred Upshaw that I kind of grew up with playing, and I played with a lot of really good players. And back then there wasn't really pro, so guys either went on to play some senior, most typically with Brooklyn, or didn't play at all. So guys went on to other careers and things like that. But I played with a lot of good guys and on good teams, and very competitive. Really big rivalries back then with Whitby and Peterborough were our big rivalries, and it was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot in those days from Jim Bishop and Bob Hanna and the likes, Neil Armstrong, who, of course, all those guys were involved in the dynasty years in the '60s. So it was a lot of fun and learned a lot.
Right. You had a great career with him. Yeah, you had the MVP award in '79, second career playmaker, 440 assists, 317 goals. Huge career with him. So you had a lot of success with him as well moving forward. How did the organization itself develop you as a player?
I think that was all Bish, to be honest. Like
Right.
I was pretty raw. I was pretty raw when I started playing there. In fact, my first year as a first year midget, it was Neil Armstrong. And then my second year, Bish came back from whatever endeavors he was doing. He kind of left the area for a while. He came back, and I think the biggest thing was the fundamentals
Right.
of the game, the very core fundamentals. He taught so well, and also the hard work ethic part of it. We were on the floor every night.
Mm-hmm.
And he believed in that. He believed in kind of the fast-paced system, the fast break system, they call it. They call it transition now, but essentially it was a fast break system. And but really the fundamentals part of the game, and the hard work, being a good teammate, kind of making it a big part of your life, even outside of when you're at the rink, like taking care of yourself and leading a good lifestyle and things like that. I learned a lot from Bish on that, because I could very well have been headed down a different path if I hadn't.
Right.
And,
Right.
I was raised by a single mom, and I was it was at times when I needed a little bit of direction, and he was certainly there to give it to me, and taught me some lessons at times when I needed them, and I learned a lot.
Right. Yeah, we've had a number of guys from from way back on outward, from Johnny Shooter Davis on. Recently, I had Larry Lloyd on, and they all come back with that same kind of message about work ethic coming out of Bish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, those guys are great examples too, right? Like, yeah, I mean, right to this day, like Larry, I see quite a bit. We're members at the same golf club in Oshawa,
Right.
and I see him quite often. He's still grinding away, selling real estate, and he probably doesn't need to, but he likes it and works hard at it, and has been successful. And so yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people in the same boat, including my cousin Freddie Greenwood, who was there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Freddie started as a stick boy. He hadn't even played lacrosse before, and And Bish was really good at finding athletes who didn't necessarily play lacrosse as a child.
Right.
And he was one of them, you know, and he just taught them the fundamentals. And if they were really good athletes, he could turn them into players. So, and he did that with a few guys that I play with as well.
Right. Now, I would hazard to say that a lot of what Bish was doing shaped you for coaching, him, Bartley, and a few of the other guys, but shaped you as the kind of coach that you are now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, all those guys you mentioned, they were impeccable at preparation. And, you know, the game has evolved immensely from back in those days. Like,
right.
You know, it's not a secret. Like, I mean, it was an up and down 3-line game. You know, it wasn't as specialized, obviously. So, you know, I had to learn over the years how to adapt to that. And that comes with preparation and doing your work. And I really learned that from those guys. And then on, you know, from a kind of a player personnel part, I learned a lot from Peter Vipon too, because he was just such a player's coach. And, you know, he kind of knew when to get at you a little bit and when not to. And, you know, so all those guys, I think I learned a lot from.
Hey, Gary. So that leads to a question that I have for you as far as coaching is concerned. Is it also a quality that you learned that you've got to be open to? There isn't just one standard for a player, the different standards, the flexibility you have to have in your own mind, how you use players and how you push them.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. There's, you know, everybody has different roles, and I think that goes in terms of the game itself, like having an open mind. Like there isn't, you know, my way or the highway. Like you know, I got rid of that attitude a long time ago, probably when I was coaching in the beaches as a young man, and, you know, thought I knew everything, and I really didn't know very much. And I just started to become more of a student of the game. And being a player, you know, being a good player or not a good player, whatever, doesn't necessarily make you that student of the game. You know, you really need to do your homework, and then, yes, when it comes to the players themselves, you know, everybody, they all have different personalities and different lifestyles and different levels of talent, different skill sets. So you have to be able to figure out how to fit those guys in. And I did that. Like, fortunately for me, like, I was able to coach at every age group. So you can kind of see how that evolves, you know, right from paperweight house league to the NLL, you know, and I've seen it at every level. So that's really helped me too, in terms of, you know, evaluating talent and evaluating what a player's role might be and what his skill sets are. And, you know, is he good enough to play at this level, or is he not? Or can we put him into a role that makes him, you know, if he's a really, really good athlete as a second-year midget, then you know what? And the game's going this way anyway. He's probably going to be a D guy. Let's teach him how to do that. Not everybody loves that style, you know, old school people, but it's the way the game's evolved, and either you evolve with it or you don't survive.
It's amazing, isn't it, that the more you learn, it seems you have to embrace with both hands and both arms. The more there is to learn, you realize the more you learn, the more there is to learn. It's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you never stop. Like I said, you got to keep the mind open. And like, I learned from other coaches in our league and even younger coaches. And, you know, I find now that, you know, there's been a bit of a change in the guard in our league in terms of younger coaches coming up. And, you know, I keep my eye on them big time, because they're smart and they play at a high level, and they have good ideas, and largely, like a lot of sports, it's copycat. And,
Right.
you know, we all kind of, I wouldn't say steal, but we borrow from one another, and it seems to work.
Absolutely. Now, you went to Ithaca College, and the other person I know who went to Ithaca College, again, somebody I talked to just recently, was Johnny Meridian. And of course, you had a big association with him, getting in with the Buffalo Bandits. Talk about that, because you were one of only a few Canadians at that time who actually got into Ithaca.
Yeah, there weren't many at all, like Canadians that were going south of the border. Like I think like Stan Cochran and his buddy Bobby Flintoff, who was a goalie, they went to North Carolina State, and that was around the same time Johnny went to Ithaca, and it was a bit of a my mom, if she were alive today, she'd still tell you she was going to kill me, because when I was just finishing up high school, or in the middle of my what back then was grade 13 year, I had a lot of opportunity. Things were starting to open up to Canadians a little bit. I think largely because of the success of Stan and
Right.
Bobby they had down there, and he was kind of renowned from his World Championship performance. So there was a lot more attention being paid to Canadian box players, because I really never even played any field lacrosse. A little bit of club. Like they started the Blue Knights program in Oshawa, and I played a little bit, but not very much. And so I had a lot of opportunity to go that route, based mainly on my box skills, but I didn't really want to go to school anymore. So Mrs. Keenan wasn't very happy. So I took a year and a half where I just worked, and then I finally decided, you know what, I think I'm going to go to school. And I didn't really like the direction my life was taking, so I kind of followed up on a number of opportunities and wrote my SATs, and I ended up in Ithaca, and it just turned out to be a great fit for me. And it was fun, and I enjoyed the experience both academically and athletically. And I was a bit of an older student, but I seemed to fit in okay, and everything worked out well.
Right. Well, that seems to be a theme that we're going to, because when you join into the mill, you're a 31-year-old rookie. That's incredible, and you win Rookie of the Year. That's even more incredible. Jumping onto the Bandits with a team with some great, future stars, Hall of Famers.
Yeah, Sergei Makarov, they called
Yeah.
It was like a 29-year-old Rookie of the Year for the Calgary Flames. Yeah, I mean, it was what happened there was, of course, the mill started probably in around, I guess, 87-ish. I was playing in Brooklyn, just finishing school, started my career with the city of Oshawa, and I had some opportunities to go down to Detroit to play for a couple of years. They would call me, and I'm like, it was a little too far, and I just didn't, of course there was no money in it.
Right.
And then the Buffalo thing came, and of course Johnny called me, and he's like, what do you think? I'm like, sure, like I think I can do this. And at the time I was I think engaged to Wendy, and and kind of made it work. And my career with the city of Oshawa was just starting, but I made it work, and it was weekend warrior stuff, much similar to now, but with not nearly the money. I think $125 a game. We didn't get per diem. We had to share hotel rooms because there was only like 6 per team or something like that. We didn't get mileage. So at the end of the weekend, you were losing money. There was no question. By the time you closed the bar down at 4 a.m., that was pretty much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but we had an incredible team though, and it just took us a while to get going, because I think it was a bit of a hybrid sport then. It was a lot of field guys, American guys. The rules were different. The style of play was different. But once we kind of got going, if you looked at our roster, we had a lot of talent, a lot of fun playing with those guys, and we had success there for a couple of years, and then started a family and got away from it for a bit.
Right. Now, talk about, you were playing in Brooklyn, and of course, even at the heyday of MSL, there weren't that many people. You get into Buffalo, and you get these packed houses at the Memorial Odd. And I know I used to travel down there, too. I used to love it. It was a zoo. So sitting up in the orange, where if you lean forward, you might be on the floor. But this place was just an absolute zoo. And so many other places, like the Spectrum, like Boston, and all these other, great barns you got to play in. Talk about that experience, when you first jumped in.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, playing in Buffalo, it was, we started 0-3. We were getting about 10 or 11,000, 12,000 a game, and then we just started pounding teams, and they're kind of like, oh, these guys are pretty good. And next thing you know, we had 16-3 in the building every night.
Right.
And won a championship our first year, and they were wild. Like, much the way it is now in Buffalo, like they've just managed over the years to maintain their following, and kudos to them. Like, for many years, kudos to the guys that are now Chugger and JT.
Mm-hmm.
Just a tremendous job, and their front office does a great job bringing people in. They do a really good job in the market, sustaining their fan base and kind of growing the game as well. So they've done a tremendous job there. And but yeah, back then it was a lot of fun. And even like you said, you go to the Spectrum, packed building, the old Boston Garden. What a place that was to play. I can tell you a quick story from
Please do.
a game we played there once. I think it was either 92. I think it might have been 93, because it was when we were kind of on our streak there, and we went in there, and it was Gatorade bottle giveaway night. So everybody who came in the building was given a Gatorade bottle, and there was probably 10 or 12,000 in the building, and that was an odd shaped building. Like the upper level literally almost hung over top of the playing surface, like over the so it was kind of very close and steep. And we were down like 5-0 early in the game. Les gave us a little blast, and I think we scored 14 goals in a row. And then the fans had kind of had enough, and down came the Gatorade bottles. And just throwing them at us, and throwing them at the Boston players, and throwing them at the refs. And it was, the whole floor was just littered with Gatorade bottles. So they had to take about 10 minutes to put up the floor. But it was pretty wild. Never forget that one.
It was a special time to play in those rinks because they were smaller. Especially Buffalo, Rochester, Toronto, because it was the Gardens. They were all a little smaller than let's say Philly. Philly had, I think, they had a regular size, what would be comparable to what a rink is today. Did it affect the game at all, do you think?
Well, it was loud. Like, that's for sure. You always felt like they were right on top of you, and close to the action. I think that's kind of the difference in the buildings from then to today. That they seem to be. I mean, it's kind of like that in Saskatchewan, actually, because it's a bigger building and holds about 14,500. And when we were filling the building there, when we were in the midst of having some success, it was very similar, very loud, and kind of on top of you. And we're hoping to get back to that soon here.
Right.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends in Saskatchewan because of the Riders, and I got to know them really well. And when they talked about going from, I think it was it Vancouver or Edmonton? Edmonton went to Saskatchewan, right? I said it's going to be a success there, and you know why I thought it was going to be a success? Because when I looked at them, I thought of Buffalo. I thought of those teams that I don't know how to explain this, but the fans get so attached to the game, and if you have fans that get attached to the game, it really is crazy. Like, it's just crazy in the arena. It's not that you don't or do have an NHL team, because Buffalo has an NHL team, but it's that attitude. The fans, the game affects some communities differently than others.
And I think for our market, it's a provincial thing, much like their football.
Right.
It's a provincial thing. We don't just have people from Saskatoon. We have people from all over the province.
That's right.
Come in for games, and they stay for the weekend and that. But I was skeptical. Like, Edmonton was. We were obviously in the midst of building a really good team.
Yeah, that was a good team.
Yeah, we won our first championship in 2015, and then we were moving, and we were actually at a stage in Edmonton where we were finally starting to draw fans. But you know what? Bruce Urban, as a businessman, the owner at the time, he kind of knew what he was doing, and boom, right away. And I think the big thing too is we took a really good team. Like, we weren't an expansion team struggling along. We were in the midst of going to 4 championships in a row and winning 3. So, we kind of spoiled the fans in the beginning, and it's been a bit down since. But now we're trying to get back there, and I think we're headed in the right direction.
I think that experience taught the National Lacrosse League something, that they need to have success when they move into a town. It led to what happened in Georgia and some other places where success helps a franchise long term. Nova Scotia too, the same thing, right?
I honestly, I think when Kurt Stiers moved, I know this for a fact actually, that he talked to our organization a lot when he moved there, when he moved the team there, because he saw similarities to Halifax, Saskatoon, like a really good sports town, smaller type building, but great community, take a good team there, which they had, and boom, they got a really good market there, and they're continuing to grow.
And one more thing, hungry for live sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But they were the same as you guys in Saskatchewan, though, because they also went to grassroots and got the kids involved. So it brought the interest of the community in there as well.
Yeah, for sure. And we're still working on, we're trying to build on that, because I think it's really important. And we've implemented some new programs this year to try and build it up again from the grassroots. And it can be a challenge at times, because there's so many other things going on with youth sports and that, but we seem to be making some headway there, and I think they've done a really good job of it out there as well.
Glad to hear it.
Right. One more thing about the Bandits thing, but that we kind of went over, is you guys started off in that first year, you were 0-3, and Buff McCready got fired, and Johnny starts thinking whether he goes behind the bench himself or brings up Les Bartley to be the head coach, and boom, now we have Les Bartley as a head coach, and the rest, as they say, is history. Knows how much of a collector I am with jerseys and old style things, and so he wound up giving me his mill jackets, his jerseys, and all these tapes, and it was wonderful. So to convert all these things and get a chance to watch it, one of my things is all the guys that we're seeing behind the bench. Well, this was their heyday playing. So what a great way to introduce people to the game of yesteryear, as well as showing them a totally different game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if you look back, I mean, I'm glad you guys mentioned that with the YouTube how you have stuff, because we got a few players
Hmm.
that like to go back and watch that stuff, and they'll say to me, "Geez, Coach, I can't believe how much you played in '92. Like you were on the field." I say, hey, the game was different then. Like,
Yeah.
we only had 15 bodies. We had 15 runners. That was it. You played offense, you played defense, you played penalty kill, you played power play. That's just the way it was. I think in '93 I even took face-offs. So, and watching these games going, and then, the officiating was much different. They didn't really call a lot, and they let crease goals go all the time, because I think the objective was to have as many goals as possible. Which, if you look at statistics,
Hmm.
like, there was a lot of scoring. A lot of scoring, and defense wasn't. It was just a different game. I mean, and again, that's like any sport; it evolves, and a lot of it is to do with what you have access to these days in terms of preparation.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
in terms of systems. And now it was far less system based back then,
Right.
and it was exciting. But as a coach, if I watch it now, I just cringe at some of the stuff. But that doesn't say it wasn't good, though, because it was really good.
Well, yeah, Darius Kilgore, when he was on, he called it the Wild West of lacrosse, because something that you probably get a 5-game suspension for now, you get maybe a change of possession back then.
Oh man, like you guys just hammer guys from behind into the boards and be like, might be a possession call, sometimes not. So you just had to, and that's what I meant by kind of our guys adjusting to the league, as largely Canadian guys who play box up here. You just had to turn your head on that stuff and move on, because you just never knew.
Absolutely. Now you stepped away from the game after a couple of years in Buffalo to have your family. What drew you back in 1999 to come back with the Toronto Rock?
Well, again, it was another one of those Johnny Meridian calls, and I think at the time it was an interesting, because they had played in Hamilton the year before, and they were moving the franchise. I think Johnny was actually looking for investors, to be honest.
Right.
That's kind of the way that thing started in Toronto. I think they had a bunch of guys put in some money, and it ended up being a great success. And I think the Waters group kind of took most of it over. But at any rate, I'm like, well, Johnny, I'm not really into that. And he says, well, what do you think about playing, maybe coaching, like maybe helping out? I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to talk to my family about that one. So then there was a little bit more money in it, not a lot,
Right.
but kind of made sense. And then I was, 38, 39, so, and I hadn't played in quite some time.
Right.
So I go to training camp. Got myself in really good shape, but there's a difference between being in really good shape and playing pro lacrosse with
Yeah.
guys that are 15 years younger. So my very first weekend, I was like, this is faster. I used to be considered a bigger player. I was not anymore.
Right.
So they faster, bigger, stronger, better, and it was a real wake up. And things, I played a few games, and it kind of evolved more on the coaching side, which was sort of the plan anyway. But that was our first year in Toronto, and as again turned out to be tremendous success. And I kind of evolved into the full-time assistant coaching the following year.
Right. Well, did you, Ed Como, and Les, what a coaching staff that was.
Yeah, again, we had a lot of fun together, and we worked really hard at it. We had our weekly meetings, and then of course our practices, and again, Les impeccable with preparation, Eddie the same, and that's kind of how we learned so much, I think, from one another in that experience. And obviously we had a lot of success too, and it just and the way it took off in Toronto too was exciting.
Yeah.
In the old gardens, and even when we moved into the Air Canada Center, we were filling the building there, and a lot of exciting lacrosse and championships, and and then that's ultimately what gave me an opportunity to get my own gig down the road.
Yeah, because Les steps away with health issues, of course, with the cancer, and you get a chance to be the head coach. Short lived in that spot, but it moves you on that you get the Anaheim gig as coach and GM, which is your first chance at being the guy and being able to build your team and turning a team around. Because that team when it was 1-15, you come in and becomes 5-11, and really made a difference in that team.
Yeah, thank you. It was a big challenge.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna lie about that. It was a pretty rough crew we had there.
Right.
In the beginning, but we did have some talent. Like we had the Powell brothers, and we had a few guys from out west, and we had some good, decent players, but we weren't really quite there. And then unfortunately folded after 1 year. But that's when I got my opportunity in Portland for 4 years. So,
Yeah.
but that was my first taste at kind of being the guy, and doing a draft, and getting scouts involved, and hiring coaches, signing players, bringing in free agents that were there. It was my first experience at it, and I learned a lot, and it just kind of paved the way for the future, I guess.
Right, because Portland comes calling, and you make history there because you're the first expansion team to finish first in the division, really an eyelash away from winning a championship in your first year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were pretty fortunate there. I think well, first of all, we got Brody Merrill in the drafts, the 1st overall. So he was such a huge impact player as a young man in every area of the game. Like, it didn't matter whether it was offense, defense, transition, physical play. He was tremendous, and we did a pretty good job in the expansion draft, as well as the Anaheim dispersal draft. A couple of trades. Brought in Dallas Elliott to play goal for us for a couple of years before he moved on to my coaching staff, and we had a really good first year, and then we were a little bit older, though, and then the second year we weren't as good. We kind of had to start again in our third year. So it was a bit of an up and down thing there. But again, all part of the learning process, and all in all, a good time there. And we did have a bit of success. And then, of course, in 2008, we were a goal away from winning a championship in Buffalo. So
right.
that was with a 6-10 team. So we kind of caught fire at the right time. I had a pretty good idea that year. We were a lot better than our record, to be honest. We had Doss and Ryan Powell kind of in their prime, and Brody, and a pretty good, really big, huge defense and physical, and we ran the floor well. So, I thought we were pretty good. We just kind of lost a number of close games early in the year, and then playoff time, we played really well and had a chance to win a championship.
Baptism by fire is a pretty fertile ground, isn't it?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
I'm just saying there's a positive in every way, and I think as a coach, I would think, because I've never coached, every situation is an opportunity to learn something and to apply or find a new principle, a new application.
Very, very true. That's what I mean by always trying to have an open mind, and learning from. I even learned from players. Like players, they're the guys playing. They're the guys out there. They're the guys that see it firsthand, and a lot of times they have really good ideas, and other times they're not so good, and you just kind of kibosh it. But other times, they're like I said, the guys playing the game. You want to learn from them as well.
It's a good character test, because if you have a squad that loses more than just a little bit, loses a lot, you get to find out a lot about their character, and it also gives them an opportunity to appreciate winning when it starts and know how close or how, it helps sharpen your concentration, I think.
Yeah, you know what? I can kind of bring that kind of concept forward to the group we have now. In our young guys, the last couple of years, like the Boudreaux and the Barnables and the Bobby Kids and the Zach Manses, and I saw last year how hard they played, and and how much they cared when they lost. And like lose an overtime game, and it was like be like, guys, we're going to be back here next week. Like you got to figure out what's next, and that's kind of when I had an inkling. You know what? We're really close here to having the right group to get back to where we were, and I see that in these guys, and it's exciting, and they're just and it makes it fun for me to be back on the coaching side of it, because it kind of brings back memories of those times when we're developing a young team back in the Edmonton days with the group that we ended up winning championships with. It was very similar. They were all young, hungry, athletic, skilled. And it's kind of a similar feel.
Yeah, if you just joined us, we're with Derek Keenan. He is the head coach and general manager of Saskatchewan's lacrosse team. Hang on. Sorry, that's my phone. I'm getting a call.
It's interesting you brought up the rebuild of Edmonton and this one here, because that was one of my questions. I was going to ask you how you rank this current rebuild with when you first got into Edmonton and built that championship team for 2015.
It's a little bit different because when I first got the position in Edmonton, they were 4 years on in the league, hadn't been very successful. In fact, had never made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So we went in and we tried to have success right away, and we did. We made the playoffs. We went 10-6 that year. I think their best season prior to that might have been 5 or 6 wins, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So we went in and had success, but again, we were a little bit of an older team. With some veteran guys we brought in, but we drafted some young guys too at the same time. Made a couple trades for a couple younger guys like Ryan Ward, and I think we brought Prout in that year, who was not young but not old either, still kind of in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
We did really well, and then the next year, Brody got hurt. I think our goaltender got hurt. We struggled. We weren't very good, and that's when we kind of went, okay, I know what we need to do here, and I had to get ownership to buy in. I said we need to start fresh, and that's what we did, and that's when we started building with the draft and a couple of trades that brought in Chris Corbeil, Jeremy Thompson, Jeff Cornwall, kind of younger guys, athletes. Unfortunately, Boston folded, and we ended up getting Kyle Rubish out of that, and Ryan Dilks, actually, which was still to this day, I'm not sure how he slipped to the second round of the dispersal draft, but he did.
Mm-hmm.
We benefited from that. So that's kind of how it started, and then from there, a couple of deals kind of got us high in the draft each year. We ended up getting Mark, and then Ben McIntosh, Robert Church. They were all draft guys, and then later on Ryan, my son, and Mike Messenger, and on and on. And it was kind of built through the draft, and sneaky little trades here and there that worked out well.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the Corbeil and Cornwall and Jeremy Thompson deals, like they were kind of game breakers for us because they brought such kind of athleticism and size and character to our team, and it was very much needed at the time, and we could play the style of lacrosse we wanted to play with athletes like that, and that's kind of how it started.
Right. Now, I really enjoyed my times coming out to Saskatchewan. Every time I come out, I stay with Evan Schemenauer and his family. And for a number of the finals and a few other things, I was out for games. I want to bring us back. I believe it was the 2017 final against Georgia. And that final play in regulation time that was just crazy. And unfortunately, you guys gave up a goal out of it. But let's just talk a little bit about that play in the setup, pulling the goalie. They had their goalie pulled. I think there's 11 seconds left, and you're up by a goal. And the thinking behind that. I agree with it, but I just it's
something that we had always done. In fact, you go back to that year, we'd probably done it 5 or 6 times and executed it to perfection. I would do it again.
Yeah.
We do have a plan B now with it that we work on.
Right.
But the bottom line, I put, to this day, I put it on myself because it's something that we didn't actually practice before that game, and we always do it every week.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, we didn't practice it, and it wasn't about the play itself, it was about the execution. The ball basically went to the wrong part of the floor. It should never have gone there.
Right.
And the middle of the floor is not where you wanted to put it. If you're gonna like, the objective is to try not to put the ball in the air at all.
Right.
You want to try and just kill clock. And Georgia played it kind of smart too. They were, I'm sure, prepared for it, because that's something that Eddie, Les, and I did in Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
10, 15 years before that. So it was something that we had, was part of our plan years and years before that. So it didn't work out,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right. The next year when you won, I agree with you. That's probably the loudest building I've ever been in. My ears were buzzing for days after that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that was, the 2016 championship, our first year in Saskatoon, when against Buffalo, when Jeff Cornwall scored on the breakaway with about 12 seconds to go. That was pretty wild too. That was the go-ahead goal one. That was pretty crazy. But yeah, a lot of success there. And like I said, I think we're on the right path to getting back there with this group.
Oh yeah, I think you have a great team now, and I think you've got the right mix of veterans and youth, and guys like Triolo and guys like Levi Anderson are going to be huge pieces in this team, I think.
Yeah, we have 3 guys left from our last championship in 2018, and I think they're the right guys. And then you bring in a guy like Triolo, and this year Austin Shanks. Unfortunately, we get Matt Hossack back, who I think is probably, arguably, has been the best D guy in the league so far this year. He certainly has been our best guy. He's a much more rounded player than he was when we had him before. So he brings a lot. Frankie's been really good in goal, which you need to have in our league.
Yep.
And then the younger pieces, Zach Mans is obviously, he's
incredible. What a shot on him.
Yeah, Brock Haley's going to be a really good player, a guy we acquired this year. I know him well. He's a Whitby kid. So, I think we've done
well, having Austin Shanks too, that's a nice little grab in the off season as well.
Yeah, a guy that I coached as a kid and through junior and a little bit in senior in Brooklyn, and known him a long time, and just love his character, and obviously his skill set's really good. And we just needed, a little more oomph on our offense from what we had last year. I think we brought it in, and Levi Anderson, I think, is going to be a really good player. So far, we haven't been lighting it up on offense, but we've been just good enough. And I think, hopefully, playing again, like we played really well our first game in Albany against a very good team, and then we had a bye week. My favorite, bye week.
I have a feeling you'd rather sell that.
Yeah, I don't like. I don't. It's not as bad this year. Like last year was like we had 7. So not as bad, but it doesn't help, especially on the offensive side, especially for a group that we're not a team that practices midweek. We just can't do it logistically.
Right.
A lot of the sort of golden horseshoe teams that can do it midweek, and you can stay a little sharper. But I think it really affects the offense more than anything. And we were not very good in the first half last week. So, but then better in the second, and hopefully this week we can kind of keep that going in Rochester.
Right. I think with Scigliano, man, is a resurgence in him. He's looked terrific. Even in preseason, he looked great, and he's ramped it right through the year. And in game 1, he was just absolutely unbeatable.
Yeah, he made some really big saves in overtime and all. That was a game where we played quite well, but in overtime we weren't very good on offense. And he made some big saves, and then it was a pass and a shot, and it was game over.
Right. Yeah.
So, and thanks to him. I mean, Frank's been really solid. And you know what? Honestly, even last year, I look at the two Halifax games where he didn't play very well, but we played terrible in front of him. And other than that, he pretty much gave us a chance to win every night. So that's what we want to a goaltender. And this year, that's what he's done. And if he can continue to do that, we got a good opportunity here.
Absolutely. Derek, it's been a very quick hour, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be on with us. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, no, I appreciate being on, and you guys had me on, and it was fun.
We really appreciate that. I think the most important thing I can say is that we didn't talk specifically about your team. I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I do know that you're up against a team that might be a little angry coming up in your next game.
Yeah, they're better than their record. Let's put it that way.
They might be a little riled. So good luck with that. And really, thank you for helping us to understand your history. And it's actually, the nice thing about doing all these interviews, we like to get to talk about the game and how people, embrace the game. And clearly, you fit the mold of pretty much everybody that we have on here. They get the sting, and it doesn't stop. There's something about this game that keeps people in it. And thanks for being in it. And I really appreciate what you've done and what you keep doing to help promote lacrosse. We appreciate you.
Well, thanks for those words. I appreciate it. And great show, guys, and keep her going.
Well, we will. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. He's the head coach of the Saskatchewan Rush, Derek Keenan, and GM for that matter. Gary, thanks for doing this, buddy.
Always a pleasure. And like you put it, I love getting the stories from all these guys and all the trials and tribulations. That's what makes this so great.